7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Or maybe I'm different, and maybe my ADHD got me tripping, and maybe.
So welcome back to the podcast, guys. Today we're here with Aaron. He's a former Peterborough player and now a coach. So could you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm Aaron McLean. I was 19 years a professional footballer, and now I'm currently first team coach at Peterborough United and under 23 manager.
Jake, start things off.
So thank you for coming on today. It means a lot. We'll get straight into questions. And what if you wasn't a footballer? What sport would you have gone into if you chose a different sport?
I'm not too sure. I think maybe rugby. The school that I went to was quite a big rugby school, and all through secondary school I played rugby as well as football. So I think if I wasn't good enough to be a footballer and I didn't see that I was, enjoying it and making progress in it, then I think probably rugby would have been.
So I was gonna start things off with your childhood. So was you like a massive footballer as a childhood? Was your parents really influence you to be a footballer, or is it just your choice?
Funny enough, as a kid, I'd say when I was, about 7, 8, I never really wanted to play for a club. I used to love going out and playing with the lads in the street, but I never actually wanted to play for a club. I don't know why that was, but one of my friends at the time used to, always say to me, "Look, just come and join my team, come and join my Sunday team." So eventually it pestered me so much that I went and played and I enjoyed it. And then from there, I just, I grew to love football. Again, even watching football, I wasn't massive on watching it really. It was more a case of all my friends would go in and watch football. So just so that I'd have something to talk about when we came back out, I'd go in and watch it as well. So yeah, it was a little bit late. It wasn't until I'd say probably about 10. Yeah, probably around 10 where I really started to really enjoy it.
Did you know you were good enough when you were 10? Did you know you were good enough to make it, or did you just not believe yourself?
No, definitely not. I loved playing and I was quick and I had a hard shot, so I used to score a lot of goals. But the technical side of it, I was, there were people that were way, way better than me. So I didn't know that I was going to end up going and being a professional footballer for many years. At that time, that wasn't in my thinking. It was just about playing football and just enjoying it really.
Jake?
You said you had a powerful shot and you scored a lot of goals. We've got here you scored 160 goals in 202 appearances. We don't know how reliable that is, but that's still quite a good record if it's true or not.
Yeah. Go on. Sorry, was there more?
No, go on. It's fine.
Yeah. To score, yeah. I think it's in and around that. I'm sure it's 170 odd, but to score that many goals in my career, I'm obviously grateful. I didn't think that I would have had the career that I've had. Obviously, dropping from late, I got released at Leyton Orient, after I'd done 2 years professional there. And then dropping into the non-league, I wasn't sure whether I was even going to get back into the Football League, to be honest. So to now, fast forward to the end, to looking back on my career, to have made the amount of appearances and scored the amount of goals that I have, and to have won the things that I've won, I look back with fond memories. And yeah, I definitely never expected it.
Obviously you said you wasn't a massive football fan as a young kid. Was it hard to transition to like normal life, like going out on nights out, to professional football life?
Not really, because I was never really one to do all of that anyway. You know, I was kind of the kid that once I took to football, then every minute I had, I'd be going and playing football. And I was in a group of friends that were very similar to me. You know, they just wanted to play football. We had, it was like a cage just around the corner from where I lived. And it had, you know, the basketball courts and the football court in it. So as soon as we finished school, we'd be there until it gets dark. Then we'd go home. The next day, exactly the same. On the weekends, you know, as soon as you woke up, you didn't need, like, we didn't have mobile phones then, which is probably foreign to you. But we just knew as soon as you wake up, you go to the courts, and eventually, gradually, everyone just ends up meeting there, and you play there all day and then go home. So for me, it was quite easy in that respect, because I didn't have the influence, you know, the bad influences, as you were. I didn't have them growing up. I just concentrated on playing football, and I knew that, you know, there were people that were going and getting into trouble, but, you know, I kind of kept myself away from that.
What about the eating side of things? Was it hard to like eat proper, like healthy food or was it pretty easy?
Again, it's, you know, up until I was about 18, I lived with my mum. So my mum would always just cook healthy meals. So the nutrition side of it was fine. And then once I left home and moved into my own place, it was a bit tougher then, because you've got responsibilities then, you've got bills to pay, got car to finance, and I wasn't on massive money. So, you know, I think the period that I was at Aldershot in the conference, you know, I think my main meal was either tuna and sweet corn pasta or pot noodles. So, yeah, you know, I think that side of it was a lot tougher, and I didn't really understand how important the nutrition side of it was. But as I went further in my career, and, you know, I was around real professionals, then, you know, it got better and better.
Was there any regrets you had as a child going into professional football, or would you have kept everything the same?
I'd say the one regret I do have is, so as a kid, I was at Chelsea from about 10 till I was about 16. And I think it was every last Thursday of the month, we'd do a 12-minute run. And I hated it. Like, even to this day, I've never been good at long distance running. And there'd be weeks where I'd just be like, I don't want to go training today, purely because I know when it comes to the 12-minute run, I'm going to be at the back. I feel embarrassed. I don't enjoy it. So there'd be sessions that I would have missed on the Thursday, purely because I didn't want to go and embarrass myself in the run. So looking back, I think those days that I did miss, I should have just continued to try and improve, you know, try and get better at the 12-minute runs. And, you know, once you've done the 12-minute run, you then go into the football side of it. So again, I was missing out on the football side for those days, purely because I was so scared of the run before. So I'd say that would be my one regret, is just, listen, you do the best that you can do at the time and keep trying to improve. And luckily for me, when I got released from Chelsea, that was something that kind of always grated on me, you know, and I've just made sure that I've not repeated that kind of pattern.
If you like left played on the running, if you know what I mean, would you think you could have stayed at like a big team like Premier League / Championship?
I don't know. I don't think at the time I was good enough to be, you know, once the lads started getting YTSs at Chelsea, I don't think I was good enough technically to be at Chelsea past 16. You know, we had players like Leon Knight, who was unbelievable technically, scored a lot of goals. We had Carlton Cole, who was a year below me, but was coming and playing up a year or 2 years above himself. So he was, you know, they could see that he was going to be probably the next one. So there was, the competition was very high. And I don't think at the time I was at the same level as some of the lads that went on and got YTSs. And going to Leyton Orient was purely that, one of my best friends, Simon Palmer, was a player at Leyton Orient at the time. And he was a year above me. You know, we've been friends since school. And he said, look, why don't you come down to Leyton Orient? And, you know, the manager would love to sign you down here. So he took me down there. I signed YTS form straight away. And then within, you know, a few months, I'd really tasted first team football there.
If you didn't move from Chelsea to that club, do you think you would have been where you got to?
I don't know. I think me going to Leyton Orient was definitely the right move for me at the time. I'd gone to Leyton Orient at 16 years old and was, you know, very quickly propelled into the first team squad and the first team environment. So, you know, for me to be able to drop down a few levels and get men's football and get those kind of experiences was brilliant for my progression. And unfortunately, I got 2 really bad injuries whilst I was there. I broke my foot, which kept me out for, I think, about 6-7 months. And then I came back and then I broke my ankle, which again kept me out for probably about a similar time. So those 2 injuries were real pivotal times where, coming back from the broken ankle, it was coming up to the end of my contract as a second-year pro, and the club were deciding whether or not to give me a contract, and they decided not to. So, you know, I think I don't regret going there, and I loved my time there. I think they helped me so much in my development, but I was very disappointed to have been let go.
Jake?
Going back to when you were at Chelsea Academy, would you say that not doing the running and like regretting that, would you say that's drove you to get where you finished your career?
It's definitely, leaving Chelsea definitely sparked something in me, because for the first few days, I think I cried straight away. I think I might cry for a few days because I didn't really know anything else. You know, I'd been there for 6 years and I didn't really know much about clubs outside of the Premier League, to be honest. So going to Leyton Orient, at first I didn't really want to go because I was thinking, I've never heard of Leyton Orient. I don't know anything about them. They're like in Division 2, and such a big gap from being at Chelsea to being at Leyton Orient. But after a few days, I kind of pulled myself together. I'd spoken to my family. I'd spoken to obviously my best friend, and decided that was the best route to take. And I'd say that leaving Chelsea definitely sparked something in me that made me want to kind of not necessarily prove people wrong, but just to show people that, listen, I do have something.
Did you think of giving up when you got released from Chelsea?
No. At no point did I want to give up. I just didn't know where my career was going to go from there. You know, all I'd known was I used to enjoy with my friends knowing that I got to Chelsea. You know, being taken out of school early to go to Chelsea games or to go to Chelsea practice and things like that. You're kind of in a little bit of a bubble that everyone loves you because you play for the Premier League club and stuff. And then once I got released, it was almost a little bit of embarrassment, I'd say. You know, that when you speak to people, they're like, oh, how's things at Chelsea? And you're like, oh no, I don't play for Chelsea no more. I got released. I think it was more the embarrassment that I was scared of than anything else. But once I'd got over that, then I was fine, and I managed to pick myself back up and move on.
Jake?
Like obviously getting released from Chelsea was a setback, but do you think did you take it as like a huge setback, or did you just like turn a blind eye to it and say see you later, and then obviously you moved to Leighton?
I took it. I think for the first few days, probably the first week, I didn't take it very well at all. It's not that I didn't even see it coming, but it was just once it was made real, then it was hard to take. Because I'm a Chelsea fan. Chelsea's like my number one club, or were my number one club. It was hard to take. So, I didn't turn a blind eye to it, but I did know that eventually I had to kind of pick myself up and kind of move on and look at what other options were there. At that age, I was 16 years old. I didn't have an agent or anything like that. So it was literally just down to my friends saying, look, come down and, these lot are interested. And things kind of just went from there.
Do you think not having an agent helped you get to Leyton Orient and get to where you ended your career? Or do you think if you had the agent, you could have gone like higher, you could have started higher up the football table?
Good question. I think in that time, I don't think an agent was necessarily needed. At 16 years old, I don't think that the level that I was at, I didn't feel like I needed an agent. Possibly if I did have an agent at the time when I was released from Chelsea, they might have been able to get me into the other clubs that were at a higher level. So potentially that could have happened, but I don't regret the route that I took. Eventually it kind of all worked itself out, and I think dependent on how hard you're prepared to work will determine how far you go.
George?
So moving on to like the middle of your career, when do you think you were in your prime?
I'd say the 4 years that I was at Peterborough were that was really a hot streak for me. Previous to being at Peterborough, I was at Grays and I was scoring a lot of goals and attracting a lot of attention then. So, I was really just starting to come into it then. But once I got to Peterborough, I really hit the ground running. I think I scored 10 goals in the first 20 games before I got injured. And then I missed the rest of that season. But the following season was, Darren Ferguson had come in. We had Craig McHale-Smith had come in, George Boyd had come in. We brought in a few other players from the league with the experienced players, Michael Hyde. And everything just seemed to click. I think at the beginning they said myself and Craig McHale-Smith couldn't play together. And I think, again, that was something that kind of drove us even further, to kind of prove people wrong and prove to people that just because we're both small, quick players, that we bring different things to the team. And, that really helped to drive us on. And, we ended up being really successful there.
Jake?
Would you say that Craig McHale-Smith was kind of like a rival to you, as like you were trying to be better than each other?
No, I'd say it was the opposite. We just wanted each other to do so well. I knew that if I wasn't scoring, then Craig would score. And if Craig wasn't scoring, then I'd score. And more often than not, we both seemed to score. So, it was almost like we just drive each other on. If you look at a lot of our goals, it's one of us setting the other one up. Because we had such a good relationship away from football that when it came to the games, it just flowed naturally, and we just wanted the other person to do well. Same with George as well. We formed such a good bond between us that it didn't really matter who was scoring the goals as long as we was winning.
Would you say that you were like best mates? Because you said you had a relationship out of football. Were you like really close when it comes to outside of football?
Yeah, we've been close. We've been close ever since. You know, I spoke to Craig literally a couple of days ago, and he's done a few. He's done a few of these, a few Instagram live videos, and every time he's on there, I jump in there and give him a little bit of banter. But yeah, listen, ever since we first played together, we've been close friends, and I'm sure we'll always stay close from now.
Jake?
Well, obviously you played with George Boyd. Is it a little bit weird as such playing with him, and now obviously you're working with him but not playing?
It was at first.
Anything?
It was at first. Obviously, when he first came back, and having been a player with him and now being his coach, it was a little bit weird, but not too weird, because again, George is one of my good friends. So the relationship we have goes deeper than football, and it's one of them that I'm respectful of the fact of how good he is, what he's done in his career, and I think he's respectful of the fact of the same with me. You know, what I've done in my career, the type of person I am. And it works well. You know, I'm always there if he wants to do anything extra, if he wants to still improve something, which he always does. You know, he's a player. He's always looking to try and improve and try and find different ways to get better. So, you know, it just seems to work. It just seems to work, and I'm not one of these coaches that's going to try and scream and shout at him as if he's just a kid. You know, I'm respectful that he's a grown man. He's had a really good career so far, and you know, all I'm there to do is to try and help him with anything that he needs.
Do you think that's one of the reasons why you came to Peterborough as a coach, like because of your relationship with obviously Ferguson, your relationship with George Boyd? Is that one of the reasons?
I'd say one of the reasons is definitely Darren Ferguson. Yeah, you know, he's, for me, the best manager I've played on, you know, in my whole career. I never enjoyed playing for a manager as much as I enjoyed playing for Darren. I had no success under Darren, and for me, the manager and coach that I want to be is exactly, you know, Darren is the kind of the focal point for me. You know, he's the way he coaches, the way he manages. You know, he is the perfect example and the perfect role model for a young coach like myself. So the opportunity to come back and work with him was definitely one I couldn't refuse. And Peterborough is like my second home. You know, Peterborough is the club that I love. I love the people. You know, I've always had a good relationship with the chairman. Even when I left Peterborough and went on to Hull, you know, I'd still speak to the chairman, and you know, we've always just had a really good relationship. So coming back as a coach was brilliant for me. And yeah, for me as a coach starting out, there's definitely no place I'd rather be than here.
Do you want to go back? Do you want to go into managing after coaching?
I think one day I do. Yeah, one day I do. But I've always said when I do become a manager, I want to be ready. You know, I wouldn't want to just jump into it and kind of going into it blind. And like I say, for me, I'm learning from the best person. You know, for me, Darren is the best manager that I worked under, and I played under a lot of managers, and a lot of managers at a high level. So, you know, Darren's the best person for me to learn from, and he's a manager that always pushes you, always tests you, always wants you to get better, and that's definitely one of his skill sets. Is that as well as improving the players, he improves the staff around him, which, you know, is a really good thing for me.
If the offer came about, would you take being a manager at Peterborough?
I think it would depend on the circumstances and when, really. Like I say, I'd always want to be ready to take that role. and I don't think it's a role that, if I didn't feel that I could go in and do myself justice, then I don't think it's a role that I'd take until I felt that way. But listen, one day I would never rule out one day being a manager if that opportunity did come up.
Jake?
Going back to when you were playing at Peterborough, obviously you were involved in the 7 minutes where we beat Huddersfield. What was the feeling after the game, knowing that you're going to play in Championship?
The Huddersfield, the playoffs?
Yeah.
When you beat I think I'm lagging a bit, George. Go on, you say.
Yeah,
No,
well, Huddersfield, yeah.
The Huddersfield game. So that season, I'd actually already left. I'd gone to Hull in the January. So obviously,
Sweet.
no, I'd left, but I was at the game. So I was at the game as a fan, because obviously that season I'd scored, I think it was something like 17 goals leading up to January, and then was sold to Hull. And the boys done unbelievably. Got to the playoff final, and there was no way I was going to move. So I was in the crowd as a fan, and it was literally one of the best games I've ever been to. After the game, they said, "Listen, come down and celebrate with us. You're just as much a part of it as we are." And funny enough, I think it was about 2 months ago, I actually got my medal, my promotion medal for that season. I'd played, more than half of the games and scored a lot of goals to play my part in that promotion season, but I never received the medal for it. And then I think a couple of months ago, Bob Sims, pulled out a medal and he gave it to me. So yeah, that season it was almost, I was a little bit sad that I'd missed out on playing at Old Trafford and being part of that day when they actually won promotion. But to have played a part in it and for the lads to have got promoted and for the club and the whole town, I was over the moon.
Was you, let's say, because you said you were pretty upset, would you have wanted to stay at Peterborough, or are you sort of not glad, but, moved on?
I think it was the right time. I think it was the right time for me to go. Gary Johnson was the manager at the time as well, and I think he wanted me to move on. For myself, I'd had an opportunity to go to Wolves a year or so previous. It didn't happen. And then I think, for myself, in my progression, and for the club, I think Hull paid like 1.6 million for me. So Peterborough had paid 150 grand from Grays, and then they were getting 1.6 million on the transfer. So I think for both parties, it was the right time. It just so happened that when I left, they ended up going and getting promoted, which I was over the moon about. But again, like I said, I would have loved to.
Did you play Peterborough the season after, so when they got into the Championship?
I did, yeah. So my first, obviously, they got promoted, and then my first game back at London Road, I actually scored the winner for Hull, and we beat Peterborough 1-0. So I said that if I did score, I wouldn't celebrate. But yeah, that's one goal that will definitely be long in the memory.
Jake?
What was it like going from Peterborough to Hull, or moving to any team?
It was good. It was totally different because obviously where I'd been at Peterborough for so long and from a young age, I was going into a dressing room of established players who have played at the highest level. Jimmy Bullard was in that dressing room. Robert Corran was in that dressing room. Paul McShane. Players who have played in the Premier League, played lots and lots of games at Premier League and Championship championship level. So I was going into a dressing room of real established professionals. So it was different. It was different, but you know, it was so enjoyable. You know, I loved my time there, and I learned so much from so many different people that, you know, it was definitely a great experience.
Was it always something you wanted to do, coaching after your football career?
It wasn't, you know, whilst I was playing, I never actually thought about coaching. You know, it wasn't really something I was interested in. Looking back now, I kind of wish it was, because I think in terms of your badges, and I think in terms of your knowledge of the game, I think it improves the knowledge, you know, of players, of coaches, of what goes into being a coach. So I kind of wish that I did. But yeah, it wasn't something that I was looking at whilst I was playing, and it wasn't until I actually came back to Peterborough on loan, and ended up being a coach for I think the last few months of the season. You know, it wasn't until that moment when I thought, yeah, do you know what, I do actually want to be a coach, and this is something I can see myself doing for the next 20, 30 years.
Jake?
I'm all out, mate.
All right, so I was just going to talk about what you think about Peterborough right now. Do you think if the season doesn't get voided, do you think they've got the chance of going up?
Definitely. I think the squad that we've assembled this season, I think is geared, ready to go up. You know, we've got a real good balance. We've got competition for places all over the park, and I'd say this. You know, I think we're all hoping that it doesn't get voided, because we're 3 points off second place. We've been in amazing form, and obviously coming back if we do finally get back, you know, we'll have everyone fit, and I really think we'll finish in that top two if we're able to play out the games.
Do you think players like, let's say, Tony, because obviously Madison's just left, well, on loan. Do you think it's nearly Tony's time, or do you think he's still got a bit to come at Peterborough?
Well, if we're able to play the remaining games, then there's still more for Ivan to do. You know, he's the leading goal scorer in the league. You know, he's one of the most highly thought of players outside of the top division. So, you know, for a striker of his caliber, you know, he's going through an unbelievable season. I'm sure that he'd really want to finish it off with a golden boot and a promotion. You know, for any player to get a promotion is the best feeling that you could possibly have. So, you know, I'm sure that he'd really want to do that. And, you know, if he was to leave Peterborough, you know, he knows he's leaving Peterborough in a better place.
Jake, you got anything else?
I'm all out.
I'm all out as well.
Thank you very much for coming on today. It means a lot for us, and we wish you luck with your coaching, and hopefully you can get to the best level that you can, and everything else.
Yes, lads. Thanks very much. I really enjoyed it.
All right, stay safe.
And you.
All right, cheers.
Bye.